Hi there, once again. This is Clifford Bates, and welcome to Reading Sun Tzu's Art of War. This is our nine. We're doing chapter 9 today, um, which is on the march. We are again. This is 9 of 13 chapters or sections, or you want to call them in that sense. Uh, what I have been doing is been trying to kind of like give a chapter each week, um, and we'll see how it goes in that sense. Today we're doing 9, and we had a revelation of last chapter was the odd thing that it was. Cause I had to take a break, and everyone caught my pen in my mouth, and I turned it back on, forgetting that I had the pen in the mouth. But that was that the last chapter. The title promises something it doesn't deliver. Mhm. Today we're talking about on the move, motion, motivation in this sense. Again, he begins this as he says. We see up at top of our corner here, and the top of the corner up there. Look over there, look over there, look over there. Master Sun said. Master Sun is, it's being reported. This is being reported to you and being taken down. Um, we're using, just to repeat it again. We're using the Mumford translation, John Mumford Penguin, two versions. I have the other version. Both of the same cheap paperback, no real commentary notes, just the text. Um, he just go right to the text. It says, Master Sun said. Now, what does he say? In taking a position and confronting the enemy. Now, this is the thing. He said, taking a position, he says, um, um, he's going to give a type of warfare, like he says. He's going to do types. Okay, so confronting the enemy. Take a position to confront the enemy. First, you're going to cross mountains, cross mountains. Stay close to valleys, camp high, and face the open. Fight downhill, not up. These are the positions of mountain warfare. So the first is mountains. He gives what? Some rules, how to approach it, like stay close to the valleys, but camp high. Why? Because if the enemy comes at you, you have the advantage. Fight downhill, not up. Okay. These are the positions of mountain warfare. So you're gonna stay close to the valleys. Don't get too high up there, but still get higher than that. And this is again for mountain warfare. This is his general rules of mountain warfare. Now cross rivers. Then keep a distance from them. In other words, don't get. If an enemy crosses a river towards you, do not confront him in midstream. Let half his troops cross before you strike. If you do not wish to battle, do not confront the enemy close to the river. Occupy high ground and face the open. Okay, so what is he saying here? This is some rules. And he also says, do not advance against the flow. These are positions in movement. The flow of the river is like this. Don't go against the flow. If you're going to advance in a river, up a river against the flow, that's kind of counterproductive. You advance again with the flow. Why? Speed and transportation. This is the secret of being able to supply yourself also effectively. If you use rivers to supply yourself, this is a very powerful thing. And he's saying that it's what you should strategize to use the rivers and their flow as this. You're going to cross a river now. What is he saying here? You should keep one. First of all, you should keep your distance from them. In other words, why? Because rivers tend to be relatively flat, even things. It doesn't really give advantage to one side. It really, it's kind of a situation now. What happens is if you're crossing the river, don't fight in the water because that's not going to be good for you. If you're going to attack, it's better not to confront the enemy close to rivers. It's better if you're going to fight the enemy on a near river. Make sure you have the high ground, and that you're facing the open. In other words, you have something behind you, and that you're facing the open. You're not. In other words, you should be facing the situation where the open is before you, not in a situation of the opposite. So therefore, that's the strategy. And they said, do not go against the law. This is the positions of river warfare. Crossing salt marshes. So that's the second one. And the third one is salt marshes, right? Rapidly, cross them rapidly. Never linger. If you must do battle in a salt march, keep water plants close by. In other words, keep, you see plants where it has water, the plants that you rely on water, you go and keep near them. Why? That's where water is. That's going to save you. Um, um, Close by, and trees behind you. These are in other words, the trees, keep water plants close by and trees behind you. Why? Because this is the positions of salt marshes. Because why? Because this is life, water. It's where water is. The enemy was not going to have that, and therefore they're going to, if they're fighting there, and they don't have access to water, they're going to be at disadvantage. So therefore, this is why you should do this. Now, next line, on level ground. So therefore, we talked. One is cross, two is rivers, crossing mountains, crossing rivers, crossing marshes. Now, on level ground. Now, what do we do about level ground? Okay, it's going to be beating me. Occupy easy terrain. Keep highland to the rear, right. In other words, uh, uh, keep highland to the occupy easy terrain. Keep highland to the right and to the rear. So this highland is to the right and to the rear. Keep death in front. So therefore, period. Keep death in front. I mean, it's the death ground, the battlefield in the front. Your highland and the highland and the should be to the right of you. No, it should be to the right of you in the sense in the rear. So it should be the right on this side to the rear. Why? This is this is a position of level ground. So therefore, and you keep death ground. He says the death in front of you, the battlefield or the enemy. Um, Observations of these four types of position enable the Yellow Emperor to defeat the four emperors. So, in other words, paying attention, observations of these four types, these positions, right? Mountains. Well, let's talk about this. Let's do. He says the four types of positions: um, mountains, rivers, salt marshes, and flat ground. Right? Um, um, if you're able to if, your observations of them and knowledge of them, not your observation of these four types of position, enabled the Yellow Emperor to defeat his four emperors. Right? Armies prize high ground, shun low. They esteem yang and avoid the yin. Okay, this is yin and yang. Right? Does that mean this is the positive and negative? But also the high and the low. Right? The armies like high ground and to avoid the low. Because why? This advantage. It's easier to fight down than go up. Okay. Nurture life. Occupy solid grounds. Your troops will thrive. Victory will be sure. In other words, nurture life. In other words, go places where you can survive. That occupy solid ground. Ground that is gives you what? The advantage. Solid ground. Ground solid is that sense that it's not going to be difficult to terrain. It's going to be firm. You're going to have the advantage. You're going to have water. You're going to have your a situation that is advantageous to you. So therefore, he says what armies plays the high ground, but nurture life. Always pick occupy solid ground. Your troops will thrive and victory will be a thriving, your soldiers thriving. This will be victory, will be assured. On mounds, hills, banks, or dikes, occupy the yang with high ground to the right and rear. Use the lie of the land to the troops' benefits. In other words, on mounds, hills, banks, or dikes. These are things that are like temporary or high areas. What you do, you keep the high ground to the right and the rear, and use the land to the troops' benefits. How the land is doing it, always take the advantage for your side. Okay. when when rains upstream have swollen the river, let the water subside before crossing. In other words, he's saying this: if there's been rain up there and the water's flooding the river, don't cross the river. That's like that, because that's going to be risk. That's going to make it difficult. Let the water subside, go down before you cross. I'll make it easier crossing. And then he says, next point, you come to heaven's torrents, heaven's wells, heaven's prisons, heaven's nets, heaven's traps, heaven's cracks. Quit such spaces with all speed. Do not go near them. So, torrents. What are torrents in this sense? Okay, the torrent is a quick flowing water area. Flooding, it's a powerful river, powerful flowing area. Wells is like something that, with the um, things that go down deep near water. Prisons, okay, this is a thing that has no movement. You're stuck into it, you're confined. Nets, again, something that ensnares you. Traps, cracks, places, holes that all of, he says what? Wells, torments, prisons, nets, traps, cracks. Avoid, quit all places with all speed. Do not go near them. Okay, let's do this. Keep well away. Let the enemy go near them. Keep them in front. Let them, let him have them uh, uh, at his rear. In other words, don't let them be behind you. Don't let them be something that you have to go through. Keep them in front. Don't have the enemy then come here, have to go through them again. Those things. These things are bad things. You should avoid them. Keep well away from those kind of things. Because why? Well, it means that it's things that are extremely disadvantageous to you, and your units and troops are moving through that. It hinders you, slows you down, makes it difficult to get through. You can't move. In other words, motion should be when you're moving in marching. Things should be easy with not that difficulty, and being able to swiftly pass. Now, today we think, okay, well, wait a minute, we have cars, we can go through it. But even with automobiles or any kind of vehicles, you have to take these things into consideration because how the terrain. I mean, trust me, even we think about modern warfare. Modern warfare depends heavily on roads. Even but we're just but tanks and cross. No, tanks and track vehicles crossing over open field can only do so slowly. It's the faster mobile is always on roads, and therefore supply usually goes by roads. This has been one of the features of the main feature of what we, if you're following the Ukraine war right now, of what defines what's why. When the enemy makes a successful capture of a part of a road, closing off a road, often defenders have to abandon if there's no way, mechanism of easy supply or even reinforcement through a road, you cut roads off and cut things off. Well, you can't defend it. You have to you either have to recapture that area, and if you can't recapture that area, you're going to have to pull out because you're not going to be able to supply and maintain the unit. Otherwise, it'll be encircled, and an encircled unit will ultimately get destroyed or captured. So therefore, this is why you should be careful about those cracks and those things. Keep them. Let the enemy have that's something they have to retreat back into. If you march by ravines, swamps, reedy marshlands, mountain forests, thick undergrowth, beware, explore them diligently. These are places of ambush, layers of spies. So what are those ravines? Swamps, reedy marshlands, thick mountains, and then thick undergrowth. Beware. This is ambushes and spies. So explore them carefully, explore them diligently to make sure that there's no troops, that the enemy doesn't have troops there, because they'll attack you from the rear. They'll attack. An ambush is a point where you're not expecting to maximum impact. Okay, so patrol around that sense. You have to patrol. You're going to have to keep. You're going to have to have your infantry and your people looking in those areas, to prevent and capture spies, because you don't want people being able to inform, give your enemy your position, your location, your capacities. That's dangerous for you, because if they're spying on you, they can keep track of you, know where you are. So again, of course they're gonna. You can't, you know, people from far away, obviously, but these kind of spies are hiding in these areas. Therefore, the ambushers and those spies, layers of spies, he says. So, therefore, if you march by these things, careful. When the enemy is close at hand and makes no move, he is counting. He is counting on a strong position. In other words, he's counting on a strong position. In other words, he's waiting to get a better opportunity. If the enemy is close on hand, it means what? And if he's not going to attack and he's not making a move to attack you, what does it mean? He doesn't have the advantage. You attack when you have the advantage. So the enemy's failure to attack is telling you that his leader has not found an advantageous position. That's information for you to understand. He is counting on a stronger position to be able to attack you. Okay? If he is at a distance and provokes battle, he wants his opponent to advance. In other words, if he's far away and he kind of provokes you, does things provoke you to come here, he wants you to go there. Don't do that. In other words, he wants the opponent to advance. If he is on easy ground, he's luring us. In other words, if he's on easy ground, he's kind of lure us into like a trap. Okay, he's baiting us. If trees move, you see trees moving, that means he's coming, right? If there are many screens, if there are many screens in the grass, he wants to perplex us. In other words, if there's many things in the grass that he's trying to make us screens that we can't, he's trying to confuse us, right? Birds rising in flight are signs of an ambush. In other words, birds are flying in the grassy area, in the swamps, and all of a sudden birds pop up and somebody's there. It's an ambush, right? And then be startled. Animals in the woods be startled are a sign of surprise attack. In other words, the animal was startled, and therefore that means there's somebody's there, and you don't know. It's not a. In other words, it's probably a force, and someone's going to do something. Maybe it's going to attack you. Dust high and peaking. The dust cloud, right, and it's high and it's peaking, is a sign of chariots approaching. Although peaking means the dust is going like this, right? I mean the dust is forming, and the dust is like has a peak, and therefore like this. So that means the dust is starting here and getting thinner out. That is, chariots are approaching. When dust is low and spreading, that means infantry is approaching. Those are signals. In other words, he's saying that on the march, move, you're going to see as soldiers watching down a road, marching through the thing, the dust of their movement is going to show. So this thing of a cloud high and peaking, that's going to be like chariots on the move. And when a dust low, or vehicles, we could say even too, right? Vehicles today. When dust low and spreading is a sign of infantry approaching. Which dust is in scatter strands. All of a sudden, there's dust that's scattered over. That means people in the woods collecting firewood, right? He's saying they're scavenging. Dust in drifting pockets. There's dust, but in drifting pockets. That means what? That the signs of enemies encamping. Humble words coupled with increased preparations are a sign of an impeding attack. In other words, if you hear humble words, if they're like the noise is coming from the camp or the information coming to you, this word, but then as you see preparations, this is a sign they're going to attack you. Strong words coupled with aggressive advance. In other words, strong words, provocations, coupled with aggressive advances, very aggressive moves, are a sign of impending retreat. Huh? No, because this is how you do it. You're going to retreat. You have to fake, if you just retreat, the enemy might be able to jump on you and do this. You have to feign them to get ready for attack. In other words, you have to con the enemy to a second. If you're going to retreat, you have to get the enemy not to immediately jump on you, but rather to think that they're going to be attacked, and they're not going to be ready to take pursuit. They're in a defensive mode and defensive situation. So if you see that, be prepared not to attack. In other words, if you're getting a situation where they're coming very aggressively, well, be prepared to go after them and go after them if you want to, in that sense. So again, we had all these things about the dust. The dust tells us certain things. The dust and how the dust clouds operate are information about what they're doing. Then the words and their actions, the words and the preparations are kind of clues to what they're doing. This. So we had what? We had trees moving, screens and grass, birds arising, beasts startling. Four things, right? Four those things. Dust high, dust low, dust scattered, dust drifting. Four. Humbled words, strong words. Right. Humble words coupled with increased preparations. One. Strong words. This. Now he says, light chariots emerging fast on the wings are a sign of a battle formation. Now, in other words, the light chariots emerging on the wings is a sign of a battle formation. They're getting ready to. So that's the second. That's the second one of these things. Words of peace, but no treaty. No, that's the second. I mean, humble words. That's the first. Strong words. Second. Light chariots. Words of peace. Um, the fourth, but no sign of a treaty or a sign of a plot. In other words, words of peace, but no motion on making a treaty or agreement. That's a plot. Those are the other next four. And then he talks about this point. This is something interesting. Much men running about and soldiers parading are a sign of expectation. So there's much running about and soldiers parading are a sign of expectation. Some men advancing and some retreating are a sign of a decoy. Soldiers standing bent on their spears indicate hunger. Bearers of water drinking first, that indicates great thirst. And let me say this, I think this is another mistake here in the text on the screen. Let me just verify this. God, pardon me, I'm short, got a little cough. Yeah, it's a mistake on the text over here. It's a next stanza. So we had what? We had 4 and 4. That's another 4. So that's three. The three fours. There's three sets of fours. Three sets of stanzas of four stanzas. Okay, and now we have an advantage perceived but not acted on indicates exhaustion. Oh, so this is a continuation. Sorry, no, I'm incorrect. Um, so we have what? Uh, 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 well, it is part of the same thing. It's that now. Let's look at this for a second. Humble words. So we had the dust, for dust, for that, for dust. Then humble words, strong words, light chariots, words of peace. Then it's that weird thing of much running about. Um, but okay, but I think this it's light chariots. It starts with light chariots. Okay, I'm gonna make this that you have this um, humble words and that are two on their own. Let's go back for a second. I apologize. I'm just thinking about this as I read it too. I'm as I'm reading it to you guys and I'm rethinking about it. I'm thinking about it again. And this is what you do when you read something. You think about the meaning of it, right? This is I'm doing it right in front of you in that sense. Um, Here it is that we talk about we talked about the humble words over here, right? The humble words, strong words, and then starting with light chariots. Light chariots on a merge on the wings talk to a battle formation. Um, Words of peace, but no treaty plot. Much running about and soldiers parading. That's this expectation here. When men are advancing, but some are retreating, that is a decoy. Soldiers standing unbent on their spears indicate great hunger. Bearers of waters. These are in other words, all these things are action being done by them that indicate something about them. Okay, about in other words, you're seeing the troops and soldiers do things. As he says, let's do it. Let's pay attention. Um, uh, uh, the action is there's talk, but there's no treaty, right? Plot. There is much running about, and soldiers are parading around. So therefore, there's something. They're expecting something. Um, the some men are advancing, some are retreating. That's decoy. Soldiers are standing under spears. Like the rest of this, that's hunger. They're starving and they have no energy. Bearers of waters drinking first. The water drinker being first. So therefore, this is a great thirst. Um, and now he says an advantage perceived but not acted on indicates utter exhaustion. In other words, the enemy has an advantage. They know it, but they don't act on it. There's some advantage or some benefit they could do, but they don't take it. They're exhausted, and that's the so that what is that? So therefore, that is let's go backwards. So um, let's count them for a second. Let's do the counting. Let's be the counter. Um, Chariots. Um, Well, no, let's take the whole thing. I think this is the whole thing. Humble words that a pending attack, that a pending retreat. So these are the action. These are the things. So after the the 4 and 4, they start out with the um, trees moving, many screens, birds, beast. Those are the first 4. Dust high, dust low, scattered, drifting pockets. Next 4. Here is the next big block. Humble words, strong words, light chariots, words of peace, much running about, men advancing, standing soldiers standing, waters, people drinking first, thirst, exhaustion. 8. Is it 8 or 9? I think it's 8. Let's just count again. I should do it. Ready? Um, this is boring. I know. Boring. Let's hurry up. Humbled words 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have a 9. 9 conditions. And remember the 9 that didn't happen. There's also 9. There will be another 9 later about the uh, 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 in page 11 of situations. But I also remember the 9 types of ground. The 9 types of ground that he mentions elsewhere. So, so here's another 9. So the 9 changes. So maybe is this one of the 9 changes he talks about in the sense? These are these events, these actions on their part. The You have the 4 and the 4, 8. Um, is there, is that a, I mean, the 4 and the 4, right? Let's go like this. It goes, we have 4 positions of things to do, the four positions. And then a discussion of praise high ground, avoid low ground, a secure life, right? Then, then what? On mounds do this, so therefore, right? In rains upstream that do that, so therefore, it's observations of the observations of that like that, and then one armies high ground, steam low ground, nature stern life, mountains they do that, rivers that's another 4. So you have the 4, another 4. Then you have the problem things to avoid, heaven torrents, the is 6. The 6 things you need to avoid, right? Never go near and let the enemy have it. Um, yeah, let heaven do it. So, so that you have the if you come, if you march, those are 2. And then when the enemy is close at hand, and if he has a distance, another 4. And then, but then it's weird. He does. If you march like that, lie for spies. If he's close at hand, strong. Okay, if the army is now, this is the thing. If he's close at starting with the march by this, be leery of it. So avoid that. Be leery of this. But then, yeah, starting here, you have if the enemy's dat, if he's distance. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Uh, there's the 5 here. The 5 different stanzas here. And then there's the warnings, right? If the birds in flight be startled, um, well, the beers bite beer startles, many screens, trees moving. These are connected here. So what is this? This is the if comes for this, if that. Yeah, that's if. That's right. If you this, if that. But no if. When it says here. But I think if the enemy comes, he's close at hand. If the enemy is close at hand and makes no move, he's coming. But if he's that, so therefore, so that is 1, 2, 5 there. Then it's the 4 things, the tree beasts that 4, if move, if many screens, if birds arise and flight, if be startled. I didn't say if, but that's the logic of if that, right? And then next is dust, dust, dust. Then you have the 9. Okay, woo! So we're just making a little patterns of here. Um, uh, uh, Now, what is he saying? If the bird gathers on empty ground, birds gather. If birds gather at some place, it means it empties ground. So that's not a signal. So therefore, if you had 9 things of this a prior was symbols of soldiers and what they're doing is being signaled to that. Now, birds gathering on empty ground. Birds are going to gather on empty ground. Birds gather there, it means that no one's there. Shouting at night, shouting. Not the enemy, that's fear. Confusion of the troops is a sign that the general is not respected. The troops are confused and that thing. If banners and flags are moving, this is a sign. If the banners and flags are constantly moving in weird locations like this, this is a sign of disorder. If officers are prone to anger, The men become weary. If the officers are being angry. Now, these are some interesting things. If, birds empty ground, shouts at night, sounds of fear, confusions among the troops, sign that the general is not respected, banners and flags moving, sign of disorder. If officers are prone to anger, men become weary. If they feed, if that is a weird one. If they feed grain to their horses and meat to their men, if they fail to hang up their pots and do not return to the quarters, then they're at bay. Now, at bay means they're about to, something's wrong. If they feed grain to their horses and meat to their soldiers, but they fail to hang up their pots and do not return to their quarters, that means they're getting ready to do something. They're at bay. Uh, Men whispering together, huddled in small groups. This is signs of disaffection. Excessive rewards are a sign of desperation. Excessive rewards are a sign of desperation. Excessive punishment is a sign of exhaustion. So these are signs you should take care of. If a general is by turns tyrannical and in terror of his own men, this is the sign of supreme incompetence. So if the general is this outrageous guy, but is always kind of afraid of his soldiers, this is supreme incompetence. All these are kind of warning signs of things, information that you look at the enemy and you can tell something about the enemy, bits of information that you can use. Envoys come with words of conciliation. This shows desire of cessation. They want to quit. In other words, this suggests they want to quit. But remember they say words without deeds. Be careful when there's promise of. In other words, go back to remember what he said earlier. Back over here, all the way over here. Words of peace, but no treaty. Okay, that's dangerous. But if you notice this, if they're coming with, oh, we want to stop, that's indicating they're tired. They want to cease. They desire. That even though it might be a plot, it tells you something about them and their condition. Because remember, you attack weakness. You take their weakness as your advantage. It is an advantage that you can take a use of and try to utilize for your advantage to you be able to win. Um, it's a chink in their armor. Protracted, fierce confrontation with neither engagements nor retreats must be guarded with vigilance. Now, this is an interesting one because why? In other words, a protracted and fierce confrontation with neither engagements nor retreats. In other words, there's confrontation protracted. They're there, but they're not starting a war. They're not moving on you, but they're not backing off either. This you have to take careful of because they're waiting for what are they waiting for? Before they strike, they're going to wait for a weakness or an opportunity to strike. So you have to be very vigilant. In war, numbers are not the issue, he says. This is a very interesting thing. In wars, it is the questioning of not attacking too aggressively, concentrating your strength, assessing your enemy, and with confidence of your own men, and win the confidence of your own men. That is enough. In other words, it's not over. Now he says, yes, it was important to overpower, but overpower does not mean numbers, not mere numbers. It means what? It is a question of not attacking too aggressively, concentrating your strength, assessing your enemy, and therefore taking advantage of their weaknesses and their vulnerabilities, and win the confidence, keeping your men loyal to you and confidence of your men. These are enough. So therefore, what? Not attacking too aggressively, concentrating your strength, assessing your enemy, and confidence in men. These four, right? That is enough. Rash underestimation of your enemy, and you will surely be taken captive. Which if you don't understand your enemy, you underestimated them, and you think, oh, I'm going to easy take them, you'll get captive. Discipline troops before they're loyal, and they will be refractory and hard to be put to good use. Let loyal troops go undisciplined, and they will be useless, altogether useless. Now this is a double-sided thing, and this is one stanza. Disciplined disciplined troops before they're loyal. In other words, if you try to discipline troops who are not yet loyal, they're going to be refractory. That means not eager, not loyal, not yours. You need to make them yours first, loyal first. But then loyal, they need to be what? Disciplined. Because loyal troops that go undisciplined, they become useless. He says, command them with civility, rally them with martial discipline, and you will win their confidence. In other words, command them with civility. Don't be tyrannical. Don't be cruel. Be civil, but martial discipline. In other words, make sure that they keep order, keep discipline, so that they become useless, and you will win their confidence. Consistent and effective orders inspire obedience. Inconsistent and ineffective orders provoke disobedience. Very important lesson here. Consistent and effective orders that make sense and make work. If you keep on giving orders that don't work, people are not going to listen to you. They're gonna lose their confidence. Consistent. In other words, in other words, there's a sense that in other words, you have to be consistent. You can't be inconsistent. In other words, if you consistent means you behave in a way that has a pattern, but that can be bad in one sense of your enemy knowing your pattern and therefore they can play you. But at the same time, your soldiers need to know your pattern of your behavior to a certain degree, that they can have signals to be able to understand, to know what you want to do, and therefore you behave. In other words, if they know that you are when you are pleased, you're gonna how to they know how to please you, they know how to deliver the goods to that sense. So therefore, this is an important aspect of this. When orders are consistent and effective, generals and troops enjoy mutual trust. In other words, the trust will be mutual in that sense. If the orders are consistent and effective, the general will do this. But if they're ineffective and they're not inconsistent, there'll be disobedience and they'll not have trust. The trust will break down. So we end with an idea about the last section of here in motion is more about leadership, about how do you lead the soldiers overall in this sense on the march, about leading the soldiers, not only about what's going through the march, but about how certain motions of how things are, how to read your enemy, but also some rules about maintaining discipline within your ranks and how to keep loyalty and trust and build it and lose it also. Warnings of how it's lost. And this ends the chapter. Again, if you have any questions, please put them below. And if I see them, I will answer them and reply. Okay, so please do that. If you've liked what we've done here, please like. If you don't dislike, you can always dislike also, and say why you dislike it. That'd be nice. I'm not a vindictive. I'm doing this for fun and for myself, trying to promote things. And this is the new way teaching. I teach in classes and things like this, of course. But then this is do things I don't usually get to do. I used to do this regularly. When I was teaching at a private school here, we used to do critical thinking, and I would do this with Machiavelli every other semester sometimes. But I quit doing that about 5 years ago because I stayed at Warsaw University only. I got older and I couldn't work my ass off as much, and therefore I make less money now. But and now that's kind of harmful because inflation is crucifying us. What I can say, what I do with my money on my books. And I need more money to buy books. If you want to give me money to buy books, you can always donate money on YouTube, or send money by Gmail to me, and by there's methods of doing that. I'd gladly accept anything you want to. I shouldn't say that. Um, but I should have a video saying, "Yeah, I don't mean to be a moocher, but yeah, it's true. Come on, I never get grants. It's like one of those things. I always have a hard time in my life applying for grants because it's begging, and I don't like begging. And you apply for grants, and the grants are usually for stupid things or trendy things. I applied for a grant recently because I was trying to need some money to hire an editor to edit the text I want to do. I want to get it published in a good journal, um, and I applied for it, and they can't, and I, they didn't even bother telling me I didn't get it. That's the more humiliating thing about it. And this is the Polish version, so therefore, of course, they do things like that. I know I had a suspicion I wasn't going to get it because I'm in the wrong department in that sense. I'm in American Studies. What the hell am I doing in American Studies? That's because I'm an American. This is how they think. You're an American. You must be in American Studies. Yeah, I'm a classical scholar, I'm a political theorist, and a student of international systems. I should be in the political science department, but they don't have enough English language programs in the political science department. And the English and American Studies is basically an all English language program. So I get to teach, and it's this interdisciplinary. So I get to teach politics and history and stuff like that. But you don't need to know that, and I'm going over my topic thing. So here, wow, wow. Again, if you want to follow me on social media, please do so. And again, if you have any interest in the book, the link is down there below. Subscribe if you want to see more of these things, and also put comments or send me an email or a tweet about what you'd want me to cover. I might try. Someone asked me to do a Burke thing. I never did it because honestly, I thought when I saw it, I thought, well, but wait a minute. There's a very good, David Starkey has just done a very good one recently. And even though I used to love Burke, and I do like Burke, and I have things to say about Burke, I'm not really I just didn't have the energy to do this. I still owe people think something on. Um, um, I need to write a review of Academic Agent's new book. I've been promising to do this. I've had it for several weeks now. I got it when it first came out, and I should write the review. I might do a video review, but who knows? Um, um, but that's it. So if you have any questions, concerns, suggestions, please send them to either by tweet or social media, or put a comment there and below, and I will see it. Well, that's it. I've been talking too long. Okay, bye bye. See you later.